uh, connecting the dots to a sustainable future, and connecting the dots to a sustainable future from two different perspectives, but amazingly, we have the same end goal, and amazingly, we have the same perspective on how to get there. So we are pretty much aligned, and so it's a great pleasure to welcome Jim Hicks to this conversation. To me, he's my brother from another mother, and he's also a grandfather who's also very concerned about what we are doing to the earth and how what kind of earth are we going to leave to our grandchildren. And so anyway, we agreed that I was going to speak first. So I'm going to speak first and give you an idea of where I think we are going and what kind of story we need to tell and how we get there. So I'm going to do about 20 minutes. I'll talk about our path for about 20 minutes, and then Jim will talk for about 20 minutes. I think Jim has slides to use, and so BJ has to make him a co-host so that he's able to use those slides. And then we're going to just talk to each other and field questions from whoever is listening, hopefully who's listening on social media. And we will post the video on our Trello card, and it'll be a permanent record of our discussion, because I really believe that this is going to be the Woodstock of the peace movement. And people are going to be referring back to this event for a long, long time to come. So to begin with, let me tell you that I was raised as a Hindu, and my parents told me right from the outset that I'm just an instrument of God, and God is always at play. And so you don't have to worry, because God's always going to take care of things for you. But you have to be a good instrument of God. Otherwise, he's going to make you suffer until you bend to his will. So that was the kind of worldview that I got as I was growing up. And then as I started studying science and engineering, I kind of forgot about it. And I said, come on, it's about understanding reality and figuring out how we are going to work with reality. And there are laws of physics, chemistry that drive reality. We know that, right? Yeah, at least the material reality. So that was the perspective I had, and I worked as an engineer. And actually, one of the experiences I had as an engineer is very relevant to this discussion, because when I started working on gigabit Ethernet back in 1996, January. Actually, I remember the first meeting I went to and spoke about gigabit Ethernet on copper. Everybody laughed at me. Everybody, the whole room, there were like 50 people, they laughed at me. So you're crazy, man. So I said, why do you call me crazy? They said, we are having trouble getting 100 megabit to work, and you're saying you're going to solve the problem by doing a gigabit and making it more robust than the 100 megabit. Now, what I was proposing was not really, in my opinion, it was not really extraordinary. I was just saying, we know how to do better at low speeds. So why don't we just use the same techniques at high speeds? So it's the same physics. And so, the same cancellers are going to work, the same echo canceller, the same near and crosstalk cancellers, they're going to work. So I had an idea that it can be done, and that we can, whereas what they were doing was the equivalent of the 1200 baud modem, right? That was the kind of technology they were using. And so from a 1200 baud modem, we went to a 14.4, 19.2, 33.6. We went to 10 times, 30 times faster modems, right, at the voice level. And so I was just proposing let's do the same thing at high speed. So anyway, it was something extraordinary for them, and they were laughing at me. And but they were kind enough to let me play. Okay, and by the end of that year in 1996, everybody realized that what I was proposing was serious, because a large company came and bought my company. and said, we want your technology. And they went and patented it. And then they sold themselves to Intel. So suddenly this technology became part of Intel. And we had it on the motherboard by 2003. And we sold 150 million units the first year. And before you know it, gigabit Ethernet was everywhere in the backbone. And it was more robust, just as we had predicted. It was more robust than 100 megabit because it was much better technology. It was much better way of looking at things. Now, why do I say that? Because I say that because I think we are exactly in the same position right now. People are looking at what we are doing and saying, oh, wow, how difficult is it to feed ourselves? We still have 800 million people who are hungry. We're not growing enough food. So if we grow more food, there are going to be more people. So it's the old model. The old model says the current way of doing things is broken. The current way of doing things is like speciesist, colonialist, racist, ableist, patriarchy. That's what we live in. We are in an empire, a colonial empire. And we have been in an empire since, 10,000 years ago. Okay, it's been this way of a few people extracting more and more from the planet for themselves. So it's a take kind of model. That's what we are in. It's the old analog model of living life. And what we see is that if we shift to a better way of doing things, and the path is opening up before us, we can see how to do it. We have all the technologies now to figure out how to do it. And we're going to be talking about that in more detail for the rest of the 9 days. So once we do that, we're going to have plenty. We're going to live in a world of abundance. And we already are in a world of abundance, and yet we don't see it because we are so wasteful in the way we do things right now. We are actually extracting 6 times as much food as we really need. And this is something that the IPCC has said. Yeah, we're extracting 6 times as much food as we really need. But we are feeding most of that to our animals, who are giving us a small portion of our food. So 83% of our food we are feeding to our animals, and they only give us 15% of the food we eat. It's tremendously inefficient. So we're doing all these tremendously inefficient things, and then we are saying, oh, we don't have enough. So therefore, 800 million people have to go hungry. And so it is so obvious that there is a better way of doing things. And that a lot of us are already adopting the better way of doing things. See, one of the first things you realize when we go vegan, I went vegan in 2008. And I thought I was giving up something when I went vegan. But then I realized I was actually gaining so much more than what I thought I was giving up. I was healthier, I was happier, I was spiritually uplifted. My God, I would never imagine going back. I cannot imagine going back. This is why I say veganism is a one-way street. Once we pass through that portal, there is no going back. There are no ex-vegans. Ex-vegans are really never vegans. They never were vegan. Okay? They're pretending to be vegan. And they're going back and saying it's ex-vegan. I really think it's impossible. At least I cannot imagine going back. Personally, I cannot imagine. So I see us at the cusp of the greatest transformation in human history, bar none. We have never done anything like this. Well, we have done something like this in the other way, because we used to be the top prey species on the planet. Okay, way back 200,000 years ago, no, maybe before that, maybe 700,000 years ago, we were the top prey species on the planet. We were easy to catch. We don't run too fast. We don't climb trees too well. We don't have big claws. We don't hear too well. We don't smell too well. We are easy prey, which forced us to figure out how to defend ourselves. And to defend ourselves, we controlled fire. We had to control fire. And by controlling fire, we figured out how to make weapons. And therefore, we could defend ourselves. And suddenly we became more and more of a predator species. And it's only 50,000 years ago when we formed a friendship with dogs that we became the top predator species on the planet. Because the dogs lent us their sense of smell, their sense of hearing, and they could detect a predator from far away and tell us, danger is coming. So prepare yourselves. That's what the barking is all about. And because we formed a friendship with dogs, we could become the top predator species on the planet. And then we took it to another level, right? No, I mean, every animal fears us now. We've killed them all. We can wipe them out anytime we want. And we are going about doing it. Little realizing that if we wipe them all out, our necks are on the chopping block too. Actually, some of us have realized it, and we're telling people, stop it. If you don't stop it, I'm going to die too. So I have a duty to tell you that I don't want to die. I don't want my granddaughter to die. I don't want my children to die. Therefore, we have to tell our story. The story that we are telling is that we have actually been doing something amazing, just like any other species on the planet. Every species has no choice but to be in alignment with nature. Okay? When the elephant is breaking branches of trees, you think the elephant is being destructive, but the elephant is actually creating openings for sunlight to stream and nourish the underbrush. So if the elephant tramps on bushes and kills them as she walks by, she's actually creating pathways in the forest for all the other animals. So the elephant has no choice but to be in alignment with nature. So why do we think that we are a special species that has that choice? No, we don't have a choice either. So for the last 10,000 years, we have been building homeostasis for planet Earth. We have been building a thermostat for planet Earth so that the Earth can never, ever go back to another ice age again, as long as human beings are around. We didn't know that that's what we were doing, but that's really what has happened. And now we are being woken up and told, hey, become a conscious thermostat species. If you become a conscious thermostat species, I'll let you live. But if you insist on being a predator species and killing everything off, I'm going to kill you too. Because for nature, another few million years doesn't matter. She can start over again. So nature is such a perfect system design that no matter what happens, she'll thrive. So it's up to us whether we want to thrive or not. And if we want to thrive, there is a way. There is a way that's open to us. That's a way that's open to us, and that is through compassion. Compassion for all life. So there are really, this greatest transformation in human history is going from a predator species to a caregiver species. Going from a system of normalized violence, which is the colonial system that we are in, to a system of normal nonviolence. From Homo sapiens sapiens, which is what we call ourselves right now. And I've never met, sapiens means wise. And I've never met a wise person going around saying, look at me, I'm wise. Usually it's a sign of stupidity, rank stupidity, when someone goes around doing that. So a species that calls itself wise is being stupid. So I'd rather that we call ourselves Homo ahimsa, the term that Judy Carman coined, where ahimsa means nonviolent. And so it describes our characteristic, it describes our character, so to speak. So this transformation requires 7 core shifts. The first shift is from speciesism, colonialism, ableism, racism, and patriarchy to veganism and radical equality and radical sacredness. Okay, that's the first shift. The colonial era is over. We are seeing through the colonial story. It's over. So we have to make it clear that we have to really create a new system that's non-colonial, that's non-racist, in which equality is built in from the outset, where everyone feels that they are treated fairly. We deserve that, and we demand that. Okay? So that's the first core shift. The second shift is from diseases and divisions, or maybe I should go the other way. I should say to health and unity for humanity, from diseases and divisions for humanity. Okay? So we deserve to be healthy and united as a species. Whereas in the current system, we are forced to divide ourselves up and fight each other across national boundaries, across racial boundaries, across all kinds of boundaries. And we are taught to eat and live in a way that causes diseases to us, just so that some pharmaceutical industry can profit off of us. I don't think that's a good idea at all anymore. And two, regeneration and remediation of the planet from destruction and pollution of the planet. So that's the third core shift that needs to happen. So routinely, when we do our daily actions, the planet must be regenerated. See, we are not in a sustainable system until we give more than we take. It's very clear. So we need to have a game, we need to play a game in which we routinely give more than we take. So that should become normal. And finally, we need to treat animals with love and kindness. So they deserve to have love and kindness from us, not death and cruelty from us. So that's a core shift that needs to happen. And we need a culture of compassion, not a culture of consumption. So that's another core shift. That's the fifth core shift, to a culture of consumption, to a culture of compassion from a culture of consumption, to a mindset of abundance from a mindset of scarcity, because scarcity is artificially induced. I can tell you that 3 years ago when I was in India, I heard of farmers committing suicide because they grew too many potatoes on their land. That's the kind of stupid system that we live in. If you grow too many potatoes, the price of potatoes plummets and you're not able to return the loan that you borrowed from the bank. Really? And we think this is normal? We think this is a good idea to have artificial scarcity so that you have high prices so that you can make a profit out of things? So then we complain that there is scarcity. We are asking for scarcity from nature and we are going to get scarcity if that's what you ask for. So that's that's a stupid game you're playing, the game of money. And finally, we need to play a different game. We need to be in a service-driven economy in which we routinely are serving others, serving animals, serving the earth, serving other human beings. And that's what gets rewarded, not what you take. It should not be a money-driven economy, but a service-driven economy. And all of these things come from the game we are playing. See, we tell stories, and the story that we are now telling is that actually what we were doing was okay. We were creating homeostasis for planet Earth, and now we are being told to wake up and restabilize the temperature and keep it there for the rest of creation. And that's our children's job from now on. Our job in my generation, our job is to bring that temperature back to the thermostat setting. Bring the Earth temperature back to the thermostat setting, and then we can hand it over to our children and say, your job is to keep it here. So teach your children how to keep it here. So we should teach our children to be climate healers, all of them. That's when you graduate, not when you know how to make money by destroying the forest. Okay? So it's very simple. It's a simple plan. And we have to play a different game to get to that. And that game is the game of Aquarius, and we're going to be talking about that in more detail later. But suffice it to say that we know how to devise games in which every player in the game is actually contributing to nature, not taking from nature, not destroying nature. So we know how to create games like that. So and that's our job now, to work on those things. And I'm now pleased to welcome Jim Hicks, and I would love to hear his perspective because it dovetails very nicely with what I say. Thank you.
Thank you, Shailesh. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. First, I just want to say, as you may know, Shailesh and I both have similar backgrounds in a way. We're both engineers. We're both practical. He was an engineer. He's an engineer first, as I was, and became a scientist. And in my case, I became a process improvement consultant and later a business executive. But everything he's just said is, I can just hear it. It's like a translation of the book that we wrote earlier this year, Outcry. And so I want to go through that book now in my 20 minutes and kind of share with you. And I think as I talk, you will see that Shailesh and I are brothers, different mother, but we're on the same page. And I'm inspired when I hear him talk because there are so few people on the planet that talk this way. So I want to share my screen now, if I may. Okay. And I'm going to start a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll be talking about it as we go along. Okay. Connecting the Dots to a Sustainable Future. This is the book that we published on the 50th anniversary of Earth Day in April of 2020. Outcry, urgent alarms from our planet and what we can do about them. And by the way, up at the top it says, is there a COVID-19 silver lining? And I believe that there is, and I'll touch on that at the very end. First, I wish to acknowledge my co-author pictured here, Stuart Scott. He is the one person who invited and introduced the amazing Greta to the world stage in Poland in 2018. Jim Cameron, a friend of mine, describes our global dilemma on the cover of our book, here where you can read it. The world is completely delusional and going to hell in a handbasket as fast as humanly possible. The only relevant question is, how do we make the crash as soft a landing as possible for some kind of continuation of human civilization? And that's the question we try to answer in our book. And I think Shailesh has answered it in his way, and I'm not going to answer it in my way. We do it by taking bold action ASAP. In so doing, we should be guided by this message of urgency from the straight-talking governor of Washington, who's got a whole lot of problems right now. We are the first generation to feel the sting of climate change, and we're the last generation that can do something about it. For all the children of the world, it is imperative that we indeed do something about it. For their sake, we must jolt ourselves into thinking differently, a process that we describe in the final chapter of Outcry. So let's begin connecting the dots to a sustainable future, connecting the dots between the way we have chosen to live on this planet and nature's ability to sustain us. Let's just hope we do a better job than the Rapa Nui of Easter Island, shown here, who were on the verge of extinction when Dutch explorers arrived there in 1722. Their fairly advanced civilization had collapsed long before that. We start with these 5 grossly unsustainable situations, all of which must be addressed. Overpopulation, eternal growth economy, fossil fuel dependence. Our food choices And we already have too much CO2 in the atmosphere already, and we need to take some of it out. We have to do all of these things. If we fail to do any one of them, I don't think we make it. Mother Nature, pictured here, is not happy with what's going on and speaks her mind in the next slide. You notice from the table of contents, she wrote the foreword to the book and establishes the theme, which is addressed to all humans in the developed world. That's because we're the ones that have caused all the damage. The other humans in the undeveloped world are the ones that are doing all the suffering. As a result of your failed stewardship of this planet, things are likely to become very painful for you in the near future. And for that, I am terribly sorry. But frankly, I've run out of patience with you and your selfish ways. Simply, you become very problematic tenants who are in serious danger of being evicted. Yes, she used the word tenants. She is our landlord, and we don't really own anything. We're just one of billions of species of tenants on this planet, but the only one that is not living in harmony with nature. Regarding those 5 grossly unsustainable situations, let's begin with our food choices. After all, this is the vegan room, because it is the only one of those enormous issues that we as individuals can address immediately. I drive home my point in the next 2 slides about the protein myth and what I call the locked brain syndrome. My journey began back in 2002 when I became curious about the optimal diet for humans for health reasons. Later, after 15 years of studying about sustainability issues in general and publishing 2 books that you see here, I drew this conclusion. The protein myth, because of the mistaken yet almost ubiquitous belief that we humans actually need to eat animal protein to be healthy, a host of incredibly powerful plant-based solutions to the world's most crucial health, hunger, and sustainability crises never even make it to the table for consideration. Here's the bottom line on our love affair with eating meat. On a per calorie basis, animal-based foods require over 10 times as much land, water, and energy as do plant-based foods. That's right, 10 times. Because of this mind-boggling information, I am fairly certain that if we cannot take the animal out of the equation when it comes to feeding ourselves, we will never learn to live in harmony with nature, thereby placing the future of our civilization and our species in serious jeopardy. So how are we doing so far? The global tonnage has doubled in the last 30 years of meat in the world. It's grown 7-fold during my lifetime, 7-fold. And it doesn't seem to be slowing down as more people in Asia, Africa, and the developing world are starting to eat meat for the first time. But of course, it's not just the food. It's also about the way we live. Pope John Paul II said, modern society will find no solution to the ecological problem unless it takes a serious look at its lifestyle. So when it comes to modifying our lifestyles enough to prevent our demise as a species, can these guys save us? Well, I would like to think so, but they don't take food choices seriously, as you probably know. They have no vision for a sustainable civilization in the future. They spend most of their time on focusing on the kind of energy we use rather than on the unsustainable lifestyles and economy that are rapidly killing the biosphere that keeps us alive. So how green is green enough? No one knows how green we must live to survive. So I suggest that we challenge ourselves to err on the side of living even greener than nature demands, because we are likely to get only one chance to get this right. To be clear, we're talking about the urgent need to totally reinvent every aspect of the way we live as we create a human habitat where only green lifestyle choices exist. Connecting the dots regarding urgent alarms from nature. As frequently reported, the past 5 years have been the hottest on record. 19 of the hottest 20 years occurred since 2000. Glaciers are melting, coral reefs, rainforests disappearing, and Of course, we can't forget the fires, particularly right now. The bigger the circle, the bigger the fire. This is a 100-year graph, and up until last week was pretty accurate. Now, 6 of the largest fires of the top 20 fires in California history are burning now. I mean, it's just incredible what's going on. Birds, insects, and coral all in terminal decline. In North America, US, and Canada, their numbers are down 29% in just 50 years. As for insects, according to a 2019 study, University of Sydney predicted that half of all insects in the world will be gone in 50 years, and all insects will be gone in 100 years. Without their pollination of crops, countless species cannot survive. Birds, bats, fish, reptiles, mammals of every size and description. And yes, that includes us, Homo sapiens, wise Homo sapiens. These 9 big picture scientists are featured in chapter 4 of our book. Some of their conclusions are quite troubling. We take their concerns seriously, but are more optimistic about our chances than some of them are, and we'll explain why after hearing from 5 of them. Let's begin with the most famous one, Jacques Cousteau, described by Ted Turner as the father of the modern environmental movement. He told Ted in 1993, 4 years before his death at 87, the following: "We've passed the threshold. The beginning of the end has started. Earth may or may not be a part of the plan that nature has for the future, Earth in the future. Life will be reborn, but first, the world as we know it now will die." Frank Fenner, esteemed Australian physician and scientist and the overall leader of the global team that eradicated smallpox, concluded at the age of 95 in 2010, shortly before his death, "Homo sapiens will become extinct, perhaps within 100 years. A lot of other animals will too. It's an irreversible situation. I think it's too late." And then there's Stephen Emmott, possibly the most informed big picture scientist on the planet. He said this in the last few sentences of his 2013 book, 10 Billion. I met Stephen Emmott in England right after that book came out and talked to him about this very topic. "As a scientist, what do I think about our current situation? Science is essentially organized skepticism. I spend my life trying to prove my work wrong or look for alternative explanations for my results. I hope I'm wrong. But the science points to my not being wrong. We urgently need to do, and I mean actually do, something radical to avert a global catastrophe. But I don't think we will. I think we're effed." And he used the F word without apology, but he used that word radical, which inspired, I guess, a lot of my thinking that I'll talk about in the future slides here. And then here's, I guess, I'd say he's my favorite. He's 101 years old now. I've never met him, but he is a scientist, engineer, and inventor, always maintained his independence. Viewing the Earth as one giant self-regulating system that he dubbed Gaia, this living legend grasps the relevant global big picture more completely than perhaps any other scientist in history. He expressed this conclusion in a 2010 BBC film: "When you see the whole picture, it is really fearsomely bad. I fear that not many of us will survive. At best, about 1 billion, possibly a lot less than that. If the Earth improves as a result of our presence, then we will flourish. If it doesn't, then we will die off." I mean, that's pretty blatant description of what it's going to take to survive on this planet. Salish described it in his words, and I'm describing it the same thing in different words. If it doesn't, we will die off. So I ask you the question, is Earth improving because of our presence? This is a pretty good photo if you want to illustrate how we live. Peter Wadhams, I've also gotten to know, arguably the world's leading authority on the connection between the Arctic Ocean and climate change. He concludes in the book you see there, A Farewell to Ice, Our only chance is to urgently begin removing CO2 from the atmosphere. In other words, no matter how fast we can reduce our production of CO2, it's not going to work. We've passed too many tipping points. It says melting Arctic ice is the canary in the coal mine. As you know, when the canary dies, we're not short behind. Temperatures are rising much faster in the Arctic than in the rest of the world. As a result, the ice is rapidly disappearing. Tragically, most people think that's a good thing. This is a graph of the temperatures. This is a graph of the ice extent. Every year, I'm going to take a minute here and show you this. I look at these numbers every day from the National Soil and Ice Data Center. I'm a big picture data guy. This is the time of year in September when the ice extent reaches its minimum. It's down around 7 million square kilometers here. And this is in the 1980s. This is in the 1990s. This is in the 2000s, and this is in the 2010s. And this is where we are this week. This dotted line is the all-time record low of 2012. But we're approaching that record, and we'll probably blast right past it this next year. Many scientists are saying that we will have ice-free Arctic within the next 4 to 5 years. And people think that's a good thing because it's more shipping lanes, more tourism, and more oil. So it's just amazing that 99% of the population doesn't understand that this is basically a death knell for us unless we figure out how to live in a rapidly heating world. So why are we more optimistic about our long-term chances of survival than these big picture scientists seem to be? It's because of 4 critical areas of knowledge in which many of them may be lacking. Food choices, I know that many of them are lacking in that one. It gets back to my protein myth and locked brain syndrome. They really think, most of them, that they need to eat meat. Systemic change is something that all of them are not familiar with. Artificial intelligence, the same thing. And overall professional leadership, that's not the field that they are in. Therefore, I'm encouraged by the fact that they may be lacking in these areas, because that means that their predictions may not come true. While I respect them greatly, I'm more confident than they are that we can learn to live in harmony with nature by leveraging these 4 disciplines to completely replace our civilization with one that can actually improve the biosphere. What about infrastructure renewal? Does it really make sense to be spending trillions of dollars repairing or replacing existing infrastructure that will likely be underwater in 50 years? This is during Superstorm Sandy in the area where I am right now in New Jersey. Willy-nilly infrastructure replacement is not going to save us. We must have a realistic vision and plan for a whole new way of sustainable living in order for us to survive and thrive on this planet. That's my conclusion. Let's talk about that vision in the next few slides. Starts with leadership. Good business leaders create a vision, articulate the vision, passionately own the vision, and relentlessly drive it to completion. We love what Buckminster Fuller had to say about changing things. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. You change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. We definitely need a new system of living on this planet, and whatever we decide, we're going to need a brand new sustainability-focused method of scorekeeping. We call it Earthonomics, as Earthonomics replaces capitalism. Did you ever stop to think about just how ridiculous capitalism truly is? An international scorekeeping system that guarantees the never-ending depletion of the Earth's resources until they are all gone? Obviously, we need a better way to keep score. I don't know how Earthonomics is going to work, but I know what kind of incentives we need. A way of keeping score on planet Earth that rewards all action to improve the biosphere and punishes those that inflict damage. I heard Silas say that in a different way earlier. So let's imagineer a world where that is possible. We call it the Great Big Northern, or the GBN, a magical place where only green options exist. a 3,000-mile futuristic living corridor near the Canadian border, 25 miles wide with a fabulous Hyperloop system in the center, housing up to 300 million people with 70% less population density than New York City has now. World's largest farmers markets, full employment, no homelessness, and the same superior health care for all. I believe that this model, fully deployed, could enable us to give back to nature over 70% of the land that we are now using. The greenest part of this plan or this vision is the magnificent Hyperloop system using today's technology, replacing over 90% of domestic air and automobile travel shown below. All citizens, think about it, will be less than a half-day travel from everyone they know. These Hyperloop trains are supposedly capable of going 760 miles an hour at ground level. Quite a vista. What about governance, jobs, and pecking order in the GBN? Consider this analogy. Think about a huge aircraft carrier in the US Navy with a crew of 5,000. This analogy illustrates the concept of governance and mission alignment, not physical conditions. So think about it. Every crew member on board wants to be there, was educated to be there, trained to be there, applied to be there. Kind of what we're thinking about the GBN. They all have exciting jobs, uniforms, meals, salaries, entertainment, social life, and a comfortable place to sleep. There is a defined pecking order, and nobody resents it. Everybody knows it's based on each person's level of contribution. The entire crew is 100% aligned with the same mission. This is very important. Their vessel is crucially important, as is our vessel pictured here. Nothing is more important than the essential vessel, our biosphere that keeps us alive. To be clear, we envision the GBN will be infinitely freer and far more participatory than any military vessel. Just wanted to clarify that point once again. How green are we living now in the developed world? My estimate, this engineer says between 10 and 20%, nowhere close to as efficient as we need to be. Clearly, we've got a lot of work to do and there's not much margin for error. So what if we fail? Consider the disaster for all the children of the world if we err on the side of taking out too few of our unsustainable habits. So as we plan our new system of living, we must keep this guideline in mind. When in doubt, take it out. What about other countries that can build on our model and modify it for their areas? The global conversation on this topic can begin now. Chapter 12 in Outcry is entitled, When All Else Fails, Can AI Save Us? Well, again, in a world with 195 countries and thousands of religions, it is highly unlikely to this practical engineer that we will ever get this mammoth GBN kind of task accomplished without a great deal of help from our cyborg friends. And Dr. Lovelock, my hero, agrees, concluding in Novacine, a book that he published in 2019. He's now 101, as I said. We need not be afraid. We shall not descend into the kind of war between humans and machines that is so often described in science fiction, because we need each other. Gaia will keep the peace. I just hope he's right about that. Musk and Putin may not agree with Dr. Lovelock. Elon Musk says, I am very close to the cutting edge in AI, and it scares the hell out of me. It's capable of vastly more than almost anyone knows, and the rate of improvement is exponential. And Vladimir weighs in with this chilling statement. Whoever becomes the leader in this sphere will become the ruler of the world. We got to beat him to that party. So how do we save our biosphere? COVID-19 silver lining. The COVID-19 silver lining I mentioned earlier is the fact that everybody's in the world's life has changed dramatically in the last 6 months, yet we are moving forward as if almost nothing happened. Before COVID-19, you couldn't get people to change hardly anything. And now everything is different about everything that we do. It's just incredible. And that's the silver lining. I think it's jolted us into being able to think completely outside the box and consider something as mind-boggling different as something like the Great Big Northern. So we listen to the concerns of those scientists as we envision and plan our future way of life. Based on those concerns, we must strive to live even greener than nature demands. We believe that we can get this done. Remember, it can all get started with a robust global conversation. Sound crazy? People who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones that do. Steve Jobs, rest in peace. Are we crazy enough? If not, let's get crazy now. Read the book, encourage others to read it. Have me conduct free Zoom conferences with your group. Join with friends to help spark that much needed conversation. The more people who are talking about this crucial topic, the greater the chance that powerful leaders will take notice. All of these slides can be found at the top of my primary website, hpjmh.com. There's my contact information. I'll leave that there for a second. When you look at it on a video, you can pause and read all of this content later to others who might be interested. So that is my end of my formal part of this presentation, Silas. So I would like to thank you for the inspiration I just, as I said, I think we're definitely on the same page, and we're looking at things differently, but we're looking at making radical changes. It's just a matter of how we do that, I think, is the only thing that separates our thinking. Who's got the baton?
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
It is refreshing to hear you speak, and refreshing to see the same kind of conclusions. That I think as engineers, we probably have the same mindset, because I was looking at this as Spaceship Earth, and we are designing how to pilot Spaceship Earth. And we are debating as to which economist or which lawyer is the best at designing how to pilot Spaceship Earth. And we would never let an economist or a lawyer design a spaceship to Mars.
Right.
Why the heck are we letting a lawyer and an economist, and then we are debating as to which lawyer is better,
Right.
Which economist is better, which real estate developer is better at designing and how to pilot Spaceship Earth. I mean, this is completely mind-blowing when you think about it, right? You never let, if someone asks me, okay, should Trump or Biden design Mars rover, the next Mars rover? I would say neither. I know it's going to blow up before you launch it. Because they don't have any clue as to how to design it. Yeah? So I think that's the kind of conversation we are having now. We are not treating it as an engineering project with engineering precision. If you really want to be within the planetary boundaries, you need to measure and you need to manage the planetary boundaries. If you really want equality, radical equality among people, you need to measure and you need to manage that equality. We need to guarantee that in the game we are playing. We need to guarantee that in the way we do things. So otherwise, we're not being serious. Okay? We're just saying something, we're doing the exact opposite, right? And I think that is what nature is telling us to do. Nature is asking us to get real. We know, enough science. We know enough about what is happening, so that we know what our future actions are going to do. This is where all the fear is coming from. The fear is coming from saying, if we keep going this way, we're going to go over a cliff. So then don't go that way, right? Isn't that hard? Isn't that pretty easy to say that? So my analogy, the analogy I use is, we are at the top of a mountain, and we know going this way, we're going to fall off the cliff. But there is another path that we can take to go down the mountain. And shouldn't we be figuring that path out and then navigating that, as opposed to just getting worried and getting, so much fear about this path is going to push us off a cliff of the mountain. Is that how you would do mountaineering? I've never seen a mountaineer say, oh my God, if I go this way, I'm going to fall and die, and sit there and worry about it all the time. Don't go that way, right? It's very easy. So I think we are in the same situation, and we need to be talking to people about the path down, as opposed to talking to people about the path that we are on, which is going to go over a cliff. Because we know that it's come to an end. This is why we try to do in these 10 days to have a conversation around what is that other path. We know some aspects of it. We know it has to be a vegan world, which is why the vegan track is there in the peace conference for the first time ever. Because they know that when we reach the summit, no matter which direction we come from, it is a vegan world. There are no slaughterhouses at the summit, at the convergence, at the up convergence. There are no slaughterhouses. There are no animal testing labs at the up convergence. So either we acknowledge that and go vegan, or we're going to pretend to be converging. And I'm tired of pretending to converge.
Silas, I have something I'd like to say about that.
Sure, please.
Remember, I showed a slide of the NGO, the environmental groups.
Right.
And I get some pushback when I talk about that, because they're kind of held up by everyone as being the good guys here. They're really trying to help us all save the planet. However, I know more about those guys than most people do. And what is unique to my knowledge is that I sat in the room with 21 people at in a private setting at a friend of mine's place. Two of the sitting CEOs of two of those large organizations were there. And my friend, the event was basically, he called it a summit. It was bringing together powerful people in the world to basically talk about the need to shift to a total plant-based diet for everyone. And so the host of the meeting asked these two CEOs of these two large organizations, he says, hey guys, I noticed on your website, both of your websites, there's hardly any mention of the importance of shifting our diet. And that's the only thing that the average person can do to really make a difference. That's by far the most powerful thing. And he says, so why is it not prominent on your website? And both of them had the same answer. And it made me want to throw up. And the first one said, well, and I mean, these are prominent people. You probably heard their names. I will not mention their names, but he said, well, you've got to understand, if we were identified as being anti-meat, it would destroy our fundraising. Right. So to me, that is criminal. That is criminal. If they're going to take our money, pay their CEOs over $1 million a year or multiple $1 million a year, and not tackle the single most important thing that every individual can do, and knowing that we can never sustain ourselves on this planet with our population unless we change our diet, to me, that's criminal. And everybody in the room kind of felt the same way. And that's why when people say, well, you know, my friends or my husband or my friend works for some of these organizations, they do a lot of good work. I think a lot of people that work there mean well, but I don't think they see the big picture. And I think by giving them money and expecting them to take care of the earth for us, I think they build complacency among the populace that, oh, they're taking care of all that. We don't have to worry about it. They'll tell us what to do. They will not tell us what to do, and they will all go down with us when the Grim Reaper comes. So to me, you know, I get animated when I talk about that topic. And I'm speaking to a large group in December, and the organizer of it's a group that has 50 or 90 chapters in the United States, a total of about 50,000 people. And they came back and pushed back on that one slide that says, well, that's kind of harsh. So I actually toned it down a bit for this presentation. But to me, I mean, that is so basic to everything we're trying to do, and it's disturbing that those 9 big picture scientists there that understand more about our future than probably any group of 9 people, and yet, with the exception of T. Colin Campbell, who appeared on that list, most of them don't get it about food. Just don't get it.
Yeah, I have a story to relate around that issue. Because I was speaking to someone in that clique, the environment, and I also will not name names. And he's also a grandfather. It's a he, and he's a grandfather. Yeah. And I sent him a copy of Cowspiracy when it came out in 2014. And he watched it, and he was upset with me. And he said, you supported this. You're letting the fossil fuel people off the hook by supporting something like this. And do you think the world is really going to go vegan? The world will not go vegan until the human population is down to 1 billion. So that's what he said. So I said, usually I don't ever speak for the world. I speak for myself. Mm-hmm. So when someone says that, you're telling me that you will not give up your meat until 7 billion people die around you. That's what you're saying. That's exactly what he said to me. Okay. Mm-hmm. I said, then whose meat are you eating? You're going to sit there and watch as so many people die of what? Starvation? While you continue eating your meat? Then which animal are you really killing and eating? So please think about that. I mean, of course, I never got a reply from that. It was too direct, I guess. But to me, that is partly what's going on. The people are sitting back thinking, let nature do the job of culling, because they have this mindset of scarcity. The mindset that says that there's not enough on the planet because I haven't accumulated enough. I only have $1 billion in my bank. Whereas the other guy has 100 billion. So eventually, when a loaf of bread costs $1 billion, I will only get 1 loaf of bread. He's going to get 100. That's the thinking, right? And so then, who's going to survive, right? This is the game of competition, the competition game that we are playing. The game of competition is who's the winner and who's the loser. And that's the constant game we play. This is one of the first lessons that my granddaughter taught me. She doesn't like losing. And she says, let's not play games in which we are winning and losing. So, for her, games are about the process of playing. It's not about the outcome. So when she was 3 years old, she was playing hide and seek. And her dad did hide and seek the way it's normally played. So he hid in a place that she couldn't find him. And she started crying. And she said, I don't like this game. She told me, from now on, I'm going to tell you where to hide. Okay? So she would tell me where to hide, and then she would pretend to look for me in other places. Because it wasn't about finding, it was about the playing. That's all she wanted. So, I mean, again, because the old system, the system that we are, that's about to die, that's already crumbling. We see that it's already crumbling. That system is all about competition as to who's the winner, who's the loser. It's a winner-take-all system, right? And in that, we have this festival every year called where people sing and then they select the best singer, right? So there's one crowned as the best singer and all the others are crying because they didn't become the best singer. And this year, they couldn't do it because there was no gathering, there was no festival, there was no competition like that. So instead, what they decided to do was get everybody to sing, and then they put a medley together and sent it to everyone, and it became like a bestseller. I mean, everyone is watching it. So a medley in which everyone sings and everyone's voices are heard is actually more enjoyable than listening to the very best singer. to that old game of determining who's the winner and the rest are all losers. So the winner, the best singer, gets millions and billions of dollars, and all the rest are starving artists, right? That's the system we have today. And that's got to go. And I really think it's just changing the game we play. Just like my granddaughter taught me. Now, I mean, I consider her to be my teacher. She's been teaching me since she was born. So everything I do is just listening to her. When she was 6 years old, she asked me, basically it came up in a conversation as to my job description. And I told her my job is to make people eat plant foods. And she thought my job was literally to give people plant foods. And she said, "You're not doing your job." Because all my friends are still eating meat. So why aren't you giving them vegan food to eat? So then she asked me, "When will you do your job?" And I told her we have to do it by 2026, otherwise we are all in big trouble. So that's how the pinky promise happened, right? So she said, "Then will you promise me that?" I said, "Sure, I'll do that." And so she said, "Will you give me a pinky promise?" And then she said, "You can never ever break a pinky promise." So now I realize that is my job. Literally, that's my job, is to make sure that everybody gets healthy vegan food, and figure out the engineering of that. How do you engineer that everyone has access to healthy vegan food? Can we not figure that out as engineers? Are we that dumb that we can't figure that out? Because we have so much food available to us. So the only thing we need to lose is this idea that everything you do is about making money. Right? What can I take? What can I take? It's the fear-based mentality. So, but I think we can easily get around that. We can easily get around that because people are now beginning to realize that our institutions are failing us, that our institutions cannot solve our problems anymore. So they are losing faith in institutions. So we need to create now better institutions, distributed institutions, NGOs, on-the-ground institutions with volunteers who actually solve problems, like getting food to people. And we're going to talk about that, I think on the 16th. We'll have a whole segment on food healers. We're going to talk to people who have been doing this. So this whole, I see today's events as a summary of what's going to come next. And we're going to be doing detailed deep dives into each one of these topics that we are talking about. I've spoken too much. Thank you.
And going back to the Great Big Northern vision, I don't know how that gets started. Obviously, it will require a lot of powerful people coming together and kind of their light coming on and realizing that we can't continue to repair the damage after hurricanes and storms and earthquakes. We need to get to a place that can sustain us long term. So we eventually put it at the northernmost part of the U.S. in the interest of being as cool as possible. But the vision is that starting out that it's only by invitation and application. And people that want to move there because they see something pretty exciting with these Hyperloop trains and full employment and healthcare and a lot of the things that Bernie Sanders wishes we had, they see it there. The rich people won't want to go there because there won't be any rich people there. No one will own anything, but it'll be a stress-free life, the likes of which no human hardly has ever experienced. But of course, it will be only plant-based foods. There will be only green options for every single thing you do in life. But there are a lot of people that would move there today. I'm one of them, if it was there. And the more storms and earthquakes and floods and fires that happen, but more and more people will get there. And then as it gets to be really something to behold, then people will be clamoring, they'll be applying, and they won't think twice about giving up a lot of the things that they can't do, that they can no longer do. It's just kind of a forced way to give up all of the habits that that can't be sustained long term.
Right.
Some of those habits, some of what's in Outcry will upset just about everybody. Everybody will be upset by something that I say in Outcry, but there are things that need to be said. There's things that need to be said about our lifestyle. I'm not going to talk about those things right now, but I try to be realistic in everything I do. As a business executive, as a process improvement consultant, I always try to figure out, okay, what's going to work? We got to get something that works. We could have a great place to live and continue all of our wasteful habits, many of which I participate in now because that's the world we live in. But I would gladly give it all up to move to a place like the Great Big Northern, and I think a lot of other people would too. But I think the key is the conversation, and that can start at any level. I'm dismayed actually that most of the people I talk to, including friends and family, coworkers, whatever, it's almost taboo to mention it in public, to talk about the fact that we're on a path to extinction, and that we have to change. And people want to talk about, parties and dining out and playing games and gossip, and people just don't want to talk about it. I'm dismayed. I really cherish the few friends I have, like Silas here, that want to talk about it all the time, but we have to get past that. And I in this case, I know that we are on the right train here. We are thinking properly about the fact that we have to dramatically change the way we live on this planet. And he said that I'm a grandfather. I have 8 grandchildren now, 3 in college. And unfortunately, several of them, 4 of my 8 grandchildren are 100% vegan. And that's because their parents are. But some of my grandchildren kind of drifted away, and they're in college. And, what is the definition of a 20-year-old? I saw a cartoon the other day of 2 20-year-olds raising hell in a bar. It says 20-year-olds loudly knowing things. And I can see my own 20-year-olds. They loudly know things. And,
the Great Big Northern is such a great idea, but I think it starts small. Meaning, Ruth Haw is going to talk about Vegantopia. I think on the 19th or the 20th. Please look up the schedule. So Ruth Haw is going to talk about her idea of Vegantopia. So, and I think, if we can just do a small developer, concept on a Vegantopia to begin with, and then have multiple Vegantopias and then connect them up and slowly grow the Great Big Northern, I think you will have lots of vegans who will want to apply. And we can have, we can select people based on what they contribute, right, to the community. It's not just money. You bring money to buy the land and build the stuff, but you also bring talent. You bring, you're a musician, you're welcome. So I think we can start creating community ideas around Great Big Northern. At least start with, combine that with Vegantopia and figure out how we can put this together. This is the time. This is our moment to make these things a reality. Okay, in not just beyond, because we are engineers. I never wanted to design something that I didn't want to build. What's the point of designing something if you haven't built it, right? You have to build it, and then you will see there are other bugs that you didn't think of that you have to solve. But that's our mindset, right? As engineers, we're solving things, and we don't stop until we have something robust. And I think it's the same way we need to be approaching this. I mean, to approach it as if we are space scientists. That's who we are. Spacecraft engineers. We are engineering how to get a spaceship Earth alive and kicking and thriving again. And thriving. But I think to me, it starts with the right story. The story is that we have been doing something all along that the Earth wanted. That we are, whether we like it or not, we have always been part of Mother Nature, right? That she's always been the boss. So now with COVID-19, she has sent us to our room to think about what we have done. And now we are meeting online instead of meeting in person. So we're not wasting all that gas to fly around to meet each other. We know now how to meet online, to think about how to do these things. And when you come out of this room that she has sent us to, we should behave better, right? That's why you get sent to a room. We should behave better with all her children, because we have been the naughty child among all her children. She loves all of us. She loves every animal. She loves all the insects. She loves all the planets, all the plants. And so she wants us to start behaving with them. And I think that's the opportunity we have now when we are in this chrysalis phase, where we've been put into this chrysalis phase and made to think. It is, but it's an exciting time, right? As an engineer, I really love to solve problems. That's what that's what gives me the kicks, right? I love to solve problems. I mean, I love to figure out how to solve something. And I think all of us love to do that as human beings. And to me, looking at it from the perspective of the thermostat species hypothesis, I'm in awe of nature. She's so smart. She made us think we were doing something else, and all along she wanted a thermostat for herself. And right, and all along we thought we were the boss, we were doing our thing, and we were extracting. And hey, she has no more ice ages to worry about, right? Because of us. And then she's going to make us figure out how we're going to live and regenerate all the forests. I mean, look at what is happening in Sadhana forest. I mean, it's incredible what Aviram Rosen and his people have been doing there. He's an Israeli who goes to India, takes land that's barren and turns that back into the original forest that used to be there. Okay? From nothing, he has the original forest back. And it's a process he went through. And he and all the people that he has trained, thousands of people he has trained in how to do this. And they're doing it in other places. They're doing it in Haiti. They're doing it in Kenya. So it's about getting more and more people like that trained so that we're not just sitting there in the Great Northern doing nothing. We are going to restore the bison. We're going to restore the original habitats that used to be there. We're going to bring back nature as it used to be before it was colonized by Europeans. That's our job, right? That'll be our job. So I would love to see you and Aviram and Ruth Haw get together, put your heads together, and figure out a bigger, synthesis of ideas. That's the conversation you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it as a conversation starter.
Right.
In terms of the Great Big Northern itself, I can tell you the origin of the idea came when I met my co-author Stuart Scott in New York, and it was right before he was going to the climate conference in Poland. And after we had a vegan lunch, and by the way, he wasn't vegan, and now he's got cancer and he's dying of cancer, and he's still not really as confident about eating plants as he should be. But that day he asked me, leaving the restaurant, he said, well, we've got a lot of problems in the world, Jim. How do you see it? What do you think needs to happen? And we walked through Central Park, and I started describing what I called at the time, what I called a corridor, living corridor. I called it 10 miles wide, going from Atlanta to Los Angeles, because that's the part of the country that I'm most familiar with. I figured there's more barren land there, wouldn't upset that many communities and all of this. And then I said maybe there would be other corridors connecting to it, one going to New England, one going to Chicago, one going to the Northwest. But I had named that one Green Region, Atlanta to LA, and the acronym was GRATOLA. And so I was just describing, just kind of thinking out loud. And the idea was that in order to get all the savings of get rid of all the automobiles and all of the domestic airliners, got to have a system. And that system, we can then free up more land, give it all. I loved your analogy of giving the land totally back to nature and let nature take care of it. We think we know what to do. Go plant a bunch of trees. We don't know what to do. We don't even know 10% of the species that exist today. We can't manage anything because we are ignorant about, collectively, we are ignorant. And so what we've got to do is give the land back to nature. And if we can take all the people in the United States and put them in that area, by the way, is about the size of Oregon, of the great big northern. And then you got more land to grow the potatoes and, you know, to have some factories here and there. But I think you give 75% of the land back to nature. And your analogy is nature knows what to do. We don't. And maybe we will someday with AI, because AI will be able to think it a million times faster than us. Now, I recommend you read Dr. Lovelock's latest, maybe it's going to be his final book, Novacine, although he's probably going to write another one at 102. But he talks a great deal about the ideas of how that can be a good thing. And if we're destined to go extinct without it, you know, I'd be willing to roll the dice myself.
Yeah, I think what Abhiram is demonstrating in Sadhana Forest is that sometimes we have done things, brought it to a point where nature will take 10,000 years to sort it out. But nature will sort it out, of course. But we have the ability to hasten the process.
That's what
of regeneration, right? By actually planting the original trees that used to be there. Don't plant some foreign tree from somewhere. No, plant the original trees that used to be there. So when you start bringing back the original vegetation, the animals return. You know, the birds come back. The original animals that used to be there, because they're all hiding somewhere. You know, there are very few of them left, but they're there. So they come back. So it's really, to me, it's fascinating to see Sadhana Forest. It was fascinating to me to see how they did it and how they were able to do in 20 years what nature would have taken, would have done it, of course, eventually, because nature always comes back to her original splendor. You know, we are just a temporary blip if we continue doing what we're doing. But what they were demonstrating is that we can actually be part of the regeneration and to repair it better, right? Repair it faster than would happen naturally. It's a little bit like, you know, if your arteries are blocked, you can say, yeah, eventually you will sort it out, or you may die. Right? But if you put something and then start eating right, right? First, you open up your blockages, do the surgery that you need to do, but start eating right. Then you can thrive, right? But if you open up the blockages and continue doing the same stupid thing that you were doing before, you're still going to die. So it's one of those things, you know, that's the kind of situation that we are in. But we are in a situation where we not only have a heart disease, we also have cancer, we have diabetes, we have, you know, we have everything put together, right? And so we really need to, this is why I say eating right should be job one.
Yes.
Okay. Not only eating right, making sure that everyone has access to good food should be job one. As an engineer, I would say that's my job one. Mm-hmm. So I think in that sense, as my 6-year-old granddaughter told me my job. She said, your job is to feed my friends vegan food, and you are not doing it.
Doing your job, Grandpa.
Yeah, I know. Get it done, Grandpa. So anyway, I think we are nearing the end. We have only 10 minutes left of our session. So Jim, could you please pass the host back to Rebecca? And and Rebecca, you can actually make people co-host, and co-host will also be able to share.